You're listening to DraftKings Network.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz podcast.
We pride ourselves here on messy, and I suspect that this hour will be even a little extra messy by our standards. The only reason we pride ourselves on it is because we don't have any other choices. I'm in New York.
The Big Apple.
I'm here. Thank you, Stugotz.
You got it.
Very comfortable in that seat very quickly. I am here to report. I don't know if it's exclusively or not, but COVID is back. Everybody in the airport and on the airplane was coughing. I was in a giant tube of disease coming over here. Everyone around me is phlegmy coughing. And as I land here, Stugotz, and I do love our swampy, bejeweled dumpster in Miami, everyone in New York is saying this is the coldest it's been here in a very long time.
That's funny. It's normally cold in New York, but it hasn't snowed in like 700 days. It finally snowed this past weekend. So
it is pretty deeply unpleasant. You seem to be very comfortable in that chair. I'm worried. I had to hover over the proceedings because I'm worried that left to his own devices, Stugotz will spend all 3 hours today and all 3 hours tomorrow just talking about Mike McCarthy returning to the Dallas Cowboys. And I don't feel like Tony, you think you want him to be doing that? This is what you want to be talking about?
It's kind of a big deal.
It's a huge deal, Daniel, because Bill Belichick just left out in the cold all of a sudden. Is there maybe a backdoor deal? Who knows?
Out in the cold?
Yeah.
You think Bill Belichick's going to be looking for work, do you? You think he's going to have a hard time finding employment?
Look, his best deal was with Dallas, and now Jerry is like basically saying to cover his own ass, hey, yeah, Mike McCarthy's coming back. I wouldn't believe it so fast.
You said, Stugotz, it's a perfect fit, and it sort of ignores that if Jerry Jones is in charge, Bill Belichick isn't.
It's a perfect fit if Jerry Jones were willing to hire Bill Belichick, but Jerry
Jones weren't Jerry Jones is what you're saying.
Yes.
If Jerry Jones were someone other than Jerry Jones.
Yeah, but do me a favor. Don't sell me on you'll win at all costs, because you won't. You won't, because you won't hire Bill Belichick. If you wanted to win at all costs, you would hire the greatest coach in the history of the NFL. He's there. He's waiting. He's probably wanting to take that job. And Jerry Jones does not want to give up any of his power to get a guy that will help him win a Super Bowl. Dan, it's odd. It's very odd.
This is what's not odd about it, and it's been pretty consistent since the 90s. Jerry Jones understands that it's the circus. He understands that he doesn't have to win in order to be the most relevant brand in the sport. He doesn't have to actually win playoff games to get 40 million people to watch his game against the Packers, even though his team hasn't actually been excellent in a really long time. Jerry Jones likes being in the middle of the spectacle. Winning, I know he can say all he wants about wanting to win above all costs, Stugotz, but that's in no way true. He wants to be in control above all costs and wants to be the reason for winning and wants to look like he's the reason for winning. And that becomes more difficult if you bring in someone like Bill Belichick.
Well, then stop saying it, because you're right. You don't want to win at all costs. So stop saying you want to win at all costs. No. You want to win your way. You want to win the Jerry way. You want to win with Jason Garrett or Mike McCarthy. And it hasn't worked thus far. And so, Dan, it's just such a rare thing to have these two coaches available to just about any team that wants them. Jim Harbaugh and Bill Belichick. They give you an advantage. They give you the best chance to win a Super Bowl. And the fact that Jerry Jones does not want one of those guys because he wants Mike McCarthy back for another season is absurd.
Can you guys put me in the video behind Stugotz so that I can just of hover above him and over his shoulder? Thank you. I like that look better. Just sort of
I'm sure you
keeping
do.
an eye on him because, and I want to look at his browser and I want to be able to see what it is that he's doing during the show to just inspect, because I suspect while I'm in New York for a couple of days here handling some Meadowlark stuff that Stugotz will attempt to get unruly. But I wanted to begin with something here. I do not know the Texas basketball coach, Rodney Terry. But you know how people get, look at how Tony smiles. You know how people get really emotional with classlessness in sports. And Mike Ryan gets infuriated when Rutgers does the upside down U, which is, I think we can all admit, the lowest point in University of Miami sports history.
Not even close.
They've been lower, Dan.
Not even close. FIU and Middle Tennessee State made those upside down U's.
No, when Rutgers does it to you, Rutgers is over the last 100 years in Division One. In Division One, I can make the argument that Rutgers is as bad as any program ever. I know they've been better over the last 5 years.
Number 2 in the nation. There was like a number 1 versus 2 USF Rutgers game with Schiano the first pass.
You're going to make me look this up.
There is no worse feeling than Middle Tennessee State and FIU doing an upside down U in your direction. As someone that's experienced all three, I fancy you an expert as well. But trust me, you do not know which hit me worse out of those three, better than I do.
Okay, well, no, but that's what hit you worse. And I understand that you're the king of the narcissist, but it's not what hit me worse, because I have watched Rutgers football. I understand that Greg Schiano came and gave them some credibility by buying Tony Soprano and having him do some marketing for them.
They had a run.
They did. They have had a run recently. I will agree with you. But let's look at what it is that happened with Rodney Terry and get me the sound of Draymond talking about Rodney, because Rodney Terry was pissed in the handshake line after UCF, because UCF, thank you, Lucy, was doing the upside down horns. And he just came player by player, shaking their hand and reprimanding them and telling them, don't do that classless shit. What did you guys think of that?
All right, let's play.
It was amazing.
Let's play the video for the uninitiated, even though Dan did a good job of setting that up. Let's go ahead and trigger the video so you can see exactly what happened here.
One by one, he went handshake. I mean, he did it to their face, one by one, the reprimand.
How about you don't tell me what to do? I mean, how's that sound?
How about you don't blow a 17-point lead at home to a team that just joined the Big 12, and you won't get the horns down on you, Rodney?
I can't accept takes on this from people who support schools that don't have a hand gesture, because you really don't know what it lands like until you do. Because what someone is doing when they do your hand gesture, whether it's the USC fight on, or the Hook'em Horns, or the NC State Wolfpack, or the U, not every school has these things. So when you're doing that, you're essentially giving them the middle finger. And no one's going to respond well to a middle finger. It does not feel good.
Why'd I get
a middle finger
To be on the receiving end?
because what a middle finger is? It's FU.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone does a hand gesture like that, it's an FU. And I think you're perfectly right to take exception to it.
No, because the more triggered you get by it, the more people are going to do it. And then
you don't have a hand gesture, Jess. I can't do the Fighting Irish knuckles upside down. All I can do is give you the finger.
Does Clemson have?
It doesn't bother you.
Does Clemson have one? I mean,
I can't do paws down. I can't do an upside down cross for Dabo. Like, these are not things.
Run up the hill.
Does Iowa have one?
No, we don't. But our own head coach gives us the middle finger all the time.
The best part about
Who
it
has
is
hand gestures. What are the schools that have hand gestures? Because off the top of my head, Texas and Miami are the ones that I think of. I don't think.
Yeah, fight on for USC. I mean, there's hand gestures that are impossible to do upside down. Like the war chant, the Seminole war chant, all I can do to add a flourish to it is maybe add a middle finger, which I've done in private. And I don't feel good about myself.
Private?
I can't do an upside down
weird.
gator chomp. That's not something that looks cool.
Wait, so you're alone in your house and you have done this? Like, explain that.
I'm at games. I'm like, with a middle finger, because it's a class. It's because I know how it feels when it gets done to me, and it sets me off. I don't like it, and I'm not. Everyone's telling me to stop and be chill. You guys don't have hand gestures. You don't know. You haven't seen it. Miss this house and miss that house and come straight for you.
One of my favorite things from childhood, and I believe my father's greatest act of rebellion, is that when he would drive past speed traps, and I'd be horrified by this because my father was all about the rules, he would give the middle finger to police officers, but only low enough under the window to be blocked by the car door. So it was
Courageous. I mean,
yes, not exactly courageous.
that's
Stugotz,
what Whitty does. I mean,
I have heard from some people here referring to us as Lebatard's Anglo delegation because of how poorly we talked about swag surfing and objecting to Taylor Swift's swag surfing during the Kansas City Miami game. And I am told that we have some video here because I heard Mike Ryan when I did it on the Zoom on Monday when we were at home for Martin Luther King Day. I heard Mike groan, "Oh no," when I particularly was doing the swag surfing. But let's just take a look. This was two Americas. My black friends have pointed out to me that me, Chris Whittingham, and Chris Cody shouldn't have been doing
Don't put
this
me in your
together.
category.
Well, okay, let's see what we have here.
You want to do a Zoom square of 4 people?
Yeah.
Swag. Swag.
Oh God, I've
Oh,
never
man,
felt whiter.
Mine's fine.
Never felt whiter. God, Jesus.
It's fun though. It is. You're right.
Yeah, no,
Jared,
it's-
you don't
I
find
will
joy
say-
in others having joy. What happened, Mike?
It's worse the second go around.
What on earth was Whitty doing?
Yeah, Whitty's the
He was
worst.
doing like a hands in the air kind of.
He was
You
being
need to
witty.
watch it 4
Did you
times
see
and
Dan?
then win on a different person.
I
each
saw
time,
Dan,
think.
but Whitty waving it around like he just don't care was.
Well, I'll play it again. All
unsettling.
I was doing is Taylor Swift in
Oh,
the middle
stop
of
it,
her
Dan.
started
we can
touching
do it
her
without
head.
sound. Just loop this as Dan's talking about what's going through his mind because he's going to defend himself saying that he was parodying Taylor Swift.
What is that?
Taylor didn't do that.
No, she, in the middle of it, she grabbed at her head. She did. And so I just did that 10 times. But I must admit to that being the first time I had seen swag surfing of any kind.
Whitty. Oh God.
It's terrible.
I nailed it. I mean,
Was Whitty saying whoop? There it is.
You guys do me the favor here as we head to break. Why doesn't the shipping container, why don't you do it for us so that you can show us how to do that correctly? And since you guys are professional critics and you're right to make fun of us, but go ahead. Feel free to show us everything you got in you. Is Tony the only one who can do it? The rest of you are just going to sit
I'm
it out?
I'm not taking this bait.
I ain't doing
Ah,
it.
Yes,
given the
yeah,
internet is
cowards.
forever.
Cowards.
I see how
critics.
yours landed. Tony's doing it
and
well.
cowards.
I co-signed
Look at
Tony's swag surf right there. That speaks for us all.
I'm surfing. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's so lonely. I feel so bad for you, Tony.
He doesn't
You're
care.
a committed teammate.
No, and also you're limited by the Zoom screen too, because your arms need to be way out there, and that doesn't present well. I'm giving you an excuse that you're not taking because you're just hanging on to this Taylor Swift.
It's a communal
defense.
dance too. Like you need people next to you to like do the swag surf with you. Because remember,
So
you're
you
supposed
lean
to
on
be on a
others.
surfboard, guys.
Yeah.
Not whatever this was, whatever Dan was doing. I don't know what.
Macarena.
Dan, you want redemption? You want to try again?
I'm enjoying the rest of you, though, because look at you, all professional critics, but then when you're asked to do better, none of you even attempt.
What else
Yeah,
is new, Dan?
Tony killed it.
Dan, what else is new? I do this for you guys all the time, and everybody just stands there and watches me like some sort of clown.
Forget the noise and pressure around fitness at New Year's. Start in a way that's right for you, whether that's rowing or shadow boxing or biking or just simple meditation. They've got you covered. Peloton's making it easier to get started. Right now, when you buy a bike or Bike Plus, get 2 months free Peloton All Access membership. Peloton helps you start no matter what level you're at. Wherever you're starting, there's thousands of classes to get you moving. Whether that's beginner or advanced rides, feel-good live DJ rides, or even artist-themed rides, they've got you covered. Peloton bike instructors keep you motivated from day one. They'll take the guesswork out of your workout, show you the basics, and help you build from there. And now, with Peloton Entertainment, watch your favorite TV shows and live sports as you ride. Perfect for those days when you don't want to miss a thing. Get started with Peloton's limited time offers. Head to onepeloton.com/deals. Terms apply.
Don Lebatard, Kensley Jansen. I got to be careful here. What did I just do there? Let me start again.
Stugotz.
He's their closer. Comes in, ninth inning, closes the game out. His name is Kenley Jansen. He has blamed his recent...
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz.
Presented by DraftKings Fantasy Sports. Check out what DraftKings has to offer this season with code DAN, because life's more fun when you're in on the action. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Age and eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com for details.
Jessica is pretty mad, and she has reason to be, Stugotz, because David Samson evidently, at the very least, came on yesterday and misrepresented the movie The Mission, which he sold it well by saying someone on a religious mission went to an island that is secluded where most people aren't even allowed. And he suggested, or no, he said flatly that those people were savages who were cannibals. And Jessica says that that's just a total misrepresentation of that movie. And I don't understand how David Samson can watch and review a movie with us and misrepresent something that flagrantly.
Yeah, well, first of all, I objected at the time to his use of the word savages, but I didn't say anything on air because I feel like every time I say anything on air against David, people just harass me. So I was like, I'll keep this to myself. So then I went home and I watched the movie. Wow, did he misrepresent the entire purpose of that documentary? People should go watch this. It's on Hulu. It's called The Mission. It's very good. But there is explicitly said in the middle of this documentary, there is no evidence that the people on this island are cannibals. And David Samson came on the show and was like, they ate this guy.
I mean, does it imply it, though? Is it implied?
No, it's not. You should just watch the documentary. I won't do it justice because there's a lot going on with this story and why this guy went there and who these people are. But yeah, not they didn't eat him. There's actually no, to this day, like, they don't know what happened to this guy's body or how he died because this is a group of people that hasn't been contacted by people intentionally. They've been left alone.
You know, Jess said to this day, and I was watching Gronk on Fox NFL Sunday, and I've noticed that that's a verbal tick that he uses to make himself sound smart. He just kind of does synonyms. A synonym, Gronk, is something that's a different word that is the same thing that you mean. But he was saying to this day to like end every sentence. And one time he used it for CJ Stroud, and he's so good to this day. I'm like, he's a rookie. Like, what, to this day? What are you talking about? Just keep your eye on that. Gronk loves to this day.
Jessica, I was surprised to hear
the down thing, I guess.
I'm surprised to hear that when you say anything that disagrees with David Samson, that people harass you. Usually it's David Samson who's getting harassed.
What? You're surprised
you guys,
by that?
I am surprised by that, yes, because why would people side with David Samson over you? My experience with our audience is that they do not side with David Samson on much of anything.
The penis.
Yeah.
Yeah, the penis.
Are you being serious?
I am being serious.
He is being serious.
No, it's the penis.
Yeah, it's because she's a woman,
Yeah.
Dan.
She's a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's the only reason? Okay, very good.
Yes. Dan, I have a question for you. If you were in a situation where you were forced to eat somebody, would you do it?
I mean, what kind of question is that?
It's a fair question. Yeah, it's a good question.
If it's the last stop on survival, like
it's
I
the
can't
movie
imagine
Alive. It's the airplane, the soccer team that crashes in the Andes. They're forced to eat one another. I'm just asking you, if we were on a trip, I don't know, to Vegas for the Super Bowl and the plane went down and we were on a deserted island, would you start staring at me or Chris or Jess or Mike or somebody?
Quite a flight path.
Weird path.
After 45 days, I'm just saying.
I am assuming that anyone listening to this, their answer to this question would be the same as my answer to this question, which is sitting here today, now, to this day, you cannot imagine under any circumstances eating another human being until you are starving to death. And then it requires your survival, and the desperation of whatever that is where it is you get to, because the strongest instinct is survival, and it will knock down all of your etiquette and all of your politeness, and what used to disgust you might be something that you choose
like
in order to survive. Yes.
So yes,
I would prefer death to eating Stugotz. Yes, particularly Stugotz. I don't imagine
you would die if you ate me. I mean.
there is a desperation that would allow me to eat that nicotine-soaked body of his under every circumstance. But let me circle back around here. I want to play some sound here from a champion, because I do believe that I have some blind spots about where hatred resides in this country and who becomes an avatar or a symbol for others, because he speaks his truth, which is a hateful truth, and then people gather behind and see some sort of bravery in a cancel climate because they just hate others and they want permission to hate others. And therefore, David Samson having a penis makes our audience side with him, even if Jessica is making sense over someone who's very unpopular on our show. Sean Strickland is the middleweight champion in the UFC, Stugotz. And this sport, and I've said this before, this sport is the gutter. It is a very bad, ugly business, and it is now being run by a person in Dana White who allows all of this to go on and takes the lane of profiting, of allowing his champion to speak this way in a press conference where he's wearing a shirt. I believe the shirt says women in the kitchen and guns in every hand, I believe is the shirt that he is wearing. And then listen to how he responds. This is a champion, Stugotz. This is a face of your sport. The sport does not have that many stars at the moment, and this guy is one of your champions. And I simply cannot imagine in football, in baseball, in basketball. I mean, hockey has an undercurrent of some of this, but it's not like this. I cannot imagine a modern athlete champion in a sport that people are covering like it's a real sport, talking like this without a reaction from the public and a backlash.
We've got a pretty supportive gay and lesbian community in this city. I did want to ask you about something you wrote a couple of years ago. You said, if I had a gay son, I would think I should.
Oh, look, another reason I'm saying in the swamp, you guys, a swamp.
You become a champion, you become a star, and someone would say,
let me ask you something. Are you gay?
I had the chance to come back with a more diverse.
Are you gay?
Could I get an answer?
Well, I'm asking. This is a part of. Are you a gay man?
I'm an ally of the community.
Okay. If you had a son and he was like, a son, he was gay, you'd be like, oh man, you don't want a grandkid?
No problem with it.
Oh man, well, dude, you're a weak fucking man, dude. You're probably the problem. You elected Justin Trudeau. Like, when he sees the bank accounts, like, you're just pathetic. And the fact that you have no backbone and has he shut down your country and seized bank accounts, you ask me some stupid like that, go yourself. Move the on, man.
That really answered the question, but I did want to ask also things you said about the trans community. You said this past October when they announced the Bud Light sponsorship that you'd go so hard on Bud Light in your next fight, they'll have to accept me or denounce me when they know what, and we'll know what they stand for. Are you
this guy's like that? This Canadian is not that Canadian.
Are you still going to use your fight time to kind of speak on that?
Here's the thing about Bud Light. 10 years ago, to be trans was a mental illness, and now all of a sudden, people like you have fucking weaseled your way in the world. You are an infection. You are the definition of weakness. Everything that is wrong with the world is because of fucking you. And the best thing is the world's not buying it. The world's not buying your peddling. The world is not saying, you know what? You're right. Chicks have dicks. The world's not saying that. The world's saying, no, there are two genders. I don't want my kids being taught about, who they could I don't want my kids being taught about, their sexual preference. Like, dude, this guy is the enemy. You want to look at the enemy to our world? It's that motherfucker right there.
Now, obviously, that's hateful. Obviously, it needs to be denounced. Obviously, it's appalling. But in that audience, Stugotz, that's being trafficked in. Now, I'm not saying it's true of everyone in that audience, but the leader in that sport allows that. The leader in that sport prides himself on everyone can say what they want. There will be no punishments here. And if there are no punishments here, as there would be anywhere else in legitimized sports, then without consequences, you're just allowing the precedent of that continuing. And my guess is, Tony, you can speak to this. My guess is that Dana White will only be upset that he went near the Bud Light stuff, that's the only place that he'll get bothered.
Yeah, Sean Strickland has been using language like this for a long time. It's just he's always kind of been the guy who's 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th ranked, so you don't really hear from him. all of a sudden his ascension into superstardom with beating Israel Adesanya has put him in the limelight where a lot of his words now are getting shown to people across multiple social medias. Like, Sean is the guy that speaks whatever is on his mind, as you can see. Like, this is some of the lighter stuff, by the way. If you actually
That's
know
the
Sean,
lighter stuff?
Yes,
that's one of the worst sound clips we've ever played on this show.
In a press conference with Strickland Duplessis, who he's fighting this Saturday, which is basically the only fight on the card that matters, Dan. I think that's an important distinction here, because nobody else on that card is really going to buy pay-per-views. People are not going to want to see them. This back and forth between Strickland Duplessis and Sean Strickland is why you're buying this fight. So when you have Sean Strickland going up there and talking, yeah, they're going to kind of give him carte blanche because they need to sell this fight.
Hey, it's Mike Ryan. I love football, and I love Miller Lite. Why do I love Miller Lite? Well, dependable flavor, the fact that it's a beer that tastes like beer, the fact that when I'm having a Miller Lite, I don't have to think for 1 second about the beer that I'm drinking. And I know that it's only 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. It's my favorite beer. I believe in the product. You might be sick of hearing me talk about it, but I'll be talking about it till I'm old and gray, because Miller Lite is with me wherever I go, no matter the season, and especially the wintertime. I love drinking Miller Lite during the winters because when it's cold outside, I don't need a koozie for it. It stays a perfect temp. It is the best beer, and it pairs well with playoff football. Miller Lite, great taste, 96 calories. Go to MillerLite.com/Dan to find delivery options near you, or you can pick up some Miller Lite pretty much anywhere that they sell beer. Tastes like Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces.
Don Le Batard.
Oh, I think Larry Fitzgerald's on the green right there.
Stugotz.
That's Alfonso Ribeiro.
How do you think that Larry Fitzgerald?
And the son.
Oh, the son.
To be fair.
All right, whatever.
Alfonso Ribeiro has a great ass.
This is the Don Le Batard Show with the Stugotz.
Why? Why do we do this? Why we do this with Colby Covington? This is really like also the only way we approach mixed martial arts, and it's not that interesting of a topic to me. It's like, how does Dana White allow this? We know where Dana White's politics reside. He's spoken articulately, honestly, on why he allows this stuff. The fact that we played that clip, which I agree, Chris, that's as hateful a clip as I've heard on this show. And I was aware of it, and I saw quotes of it. I wasn't prepared for how I would feel after seeing 2 minutes of it. F that guy. F him. He's a stupid motherfucker who is hateful. And the fact that he's not suspended, where he'd be suspended in any other sport, hell, forget sport. In most companies, that shit would at the very least get you suspended, is an indictment on that company. It's publicly traded, by the way. So Endeavor and TKO, you should answer for this in ways that he hasn't had to in other incarnations of this sport.
That's why you platform it, though, Mike. The people need to hear it. We're all in our silos. We're all speaking to our own people with our own set of facts. This stuff, it can't
I
just
don't need,
exist.
Dan, I will stop you right there. I don't need Sean Strickland to let me know that there's hate in this world. I open up Twitter for that. I don't. Mike, at a certain point, you got to say, F that guy.
And that's fine, but that's where the discourse is in this country right now. Where
You don't think that was saying F you to everybody else? That's not a discourse. That's pure hate.
Mike, you cannot tell me, as many people do, I don't want politics with my sports, and continually go to athletes and champions for their opinions on things. Listen to it from LeBron James, and people object to it there and tell him to shut up and dribble, and then simply ignore when something like this is happening. I think it needs to see the light. It needs to, beyond the platform there that he's on, where it's normalized and it's more acceptable because he's speaking to his audience.
And we are a guilty party, Dan. We are a guilty party in allowing this conflation of hate and politics. That right there is not politics.
But Mike, it can't
it's
be
become politics.
No, Mike.
That is pure hatred.
Mike, what Dan is saying, it is hatred. It's disgusting. But what Dan is saying is you can't want politics and sports mixed up, but it only be your politics.
And I'm telling you, it's not politics. Up until like 8 years ago, it wasn't politics. And we've allowed for it to be political. It is not. I know how he votes because we've given license to people to speak like this freely. And when I hear all their political beliefs encapsulated in that, it is not political in nature.
Mike, you say
it is hateful.
We've given license to speak this way freely. Not in sports we haven't. It's only in that sport. That it isn't across sports. You cannot speak that way. That's not, and furthermore, I would say that a good deal of MMA audience applauds the idea that in their sport, he can speak his mind that way in a way that his audience doesn't necessarily disagree with, hateful or not. And so as a principle, because you've done this before with Colby Covington, yes, what Tony just said at the end of that break, it is part of how you sell fights in the gutter. Boxing has always trafficked in the race stuff, and this is the natural evolution of the sport that has replaced boxing. It is part of what is used for profit in that sport. But what is your solution? To ignore it? Because I'm telling you.
Yeah, because I ignore it in my everyday life. I ignore it. I ignore it. I get bullshit on social media. I either block it, mute it. I can ignore it because I don't want that infecting my life. I'm not better because I heard that clip. I'm angry. That has done nothing for me except make me angry.
Anger is what leads movement toward change. You have to feel.
In fact, Dan, normalizing that kind of behavior and platforming it has brought about a change.
That's not
a change
normal.
where someone can speak like that freely. That's the change that has happened.
And here becomes the plight of the MMA fan, where it's like you love the sport because of in octagon stuff, right? You love the martial arts, you love the striking, you love all this stuff, but then you have to also, it's the art and artist. Can you separate the art from the artist? Of Sean Strickland in the octagon, outside of everything that he says and does, is an excellent fighter. And if you look at the story of how he's progressed, being knocked out 2 years ago to now being the champion, like his in-octagon stuff is amazing. His turnaround is amazing. But yet we can't talk about that because of all the other shit that's happening around it. So it's tough for MMA fans where you're like, man, the stuff that's happening in the octagon is so excellent. There's such a high level of athleticism that you just can't talk about because this supersedes everything else. And again, this is just the buildup of selling the fight. And by the way, this whole conversation with Sean Strickland had nothing to do with the other stuff that he did with Dricus du Plessis, where he called him a gay slur, where he went after him because Dricus was talking about how Sean Strickland, who's endured his own trauma with a child abuse past, like there's a lot of stuff that we haven't even touched the surface of. But again, it all gets lost in everything that's happening outside the octagon.
I also would love in real time to have known, because I'm making an assumption based on, we want to make this a political discussion. I would love to know how Sean Strickland and his fans felt about Colin Kaepernick taking a knee. I would love to know if they regurgitated keep politics out of sports. Keep hate out of sports. That is just purely hateful. And I love the sport of mixed martial arts. And it's become unavoidable. And I go with the flow. I feel the way that I do about it. I'll give a middle finger under a table, if you will, to people I disagree with. I also root for them to get their asses beat. Because thankfully in this sport, there's some sort of comeuppance that you don't get in other places. But that is garbage of the highest order. The fact that it's a publicly traded company and they can just keep going by because they have a cult of personality at the head of it in Dana White, because he's never had to be accountable, and anytime he is held accountable, he rebuffs it because, hell, he's speaking before Donald Trump at the RNC. That is bullshit that we allow that. It's bullshit. And we can't ignore it. And we should. If there isn't going to be a punitive measure, let's move on. Move the on.
But there can't be a punitive measure, Mike, if the person in charge doesn't feel anything in the way of pressure. Like, there has to be the outrage and the reaction to it. Now, I understand that the reaction these days to the outrage is to simply say, you're too sensitive. You want to cancel me. This isn't freedom, you being outraged by every little thing. But this kind of speech is not a little thing.
He's wearing a T-shirt that says, women go back in the kitchen. Well, like, what are we doing? Like that's not... Look, we haven't even touched on that. That's hatred of 40 years ago. We kind of got past that. And now we're just rehashing it because there has been a change. And it's the same people that ask for politics to be kept out of sports and have introduced this vile hatred into it. while being platformed, while being legitimized, as the former president of the United States sits next to Dana White, the head of their company, at big marquee events. It's just as it's on ESPN. I asked Jimmy Pitaro, what gonads are you going to show me in this instance? Because that pay-per-view is on ESPN Plus. That is on ESPN Plus. And I know Disney is an inclusive company. I worked for it. You say nothing? You know what? You were right, Dan. I'll walk it back. End of the segment. I have to change my mind on something. I'm glad you made us play that video, because while the UFC isn't going to do anything about it, I would challenge ESPN to make a public statement on this, because that kind of hate is going over their airwaves. The Walt Disney Company. What are you, a chicken shit that you allow this with impunity regularly? But it's never been this vile. The guy's wearing a t-shirt that says women belong in the kitchen, a gun in every hand. Disney's a family company. Hell, Disney's a company. Take family out of it. This is revolting. You have that guy's last name on a pay-per-view. At the very least, condemn it.
Tony?
Dan, you want the punitive measure. It's at the end of that clip that we're not talking about is the sponsorship between Bud Light. And Modelo was the sponsor before Bud Light. Obviously, everything that happened with Bud Light in the national media, right? Now they go to the UFC and say, hey, we're going to give you the most money we can to sponsor this event or sponsor, UFC in totality. But if Sean Strickland goes out, defends the title, beats Dracus, and then talks about Bud Light, the main sponsor for UFC, that's where you're going to have Dana go, hold on. We cannot have this happen. So I feel like that's the moment when Dana will step in.
It's unbelievable that it's unbelievable that it's that overt.
What's going on with Mike Vrabel?
I think he's going to take the year off.
Yeah.
I think he should probably take a year off.
Atlanta?
But why? I mean,
you never know. There's pretty good jobs available right now.
This is a good coach, and it seems like no one wants to interview him. No one's considering him for their head coaching job. I mean, what is he? Is he waiting around for the right job?
Intense. I'm sure some in his family say, why don't you just cool it for a year? This is a guy that told his team we're going to knock Tom Brady's dick off before a playoff game.
Yeah. That's right.
And you know what? They came pretty close. I can't verify it.
Mm-hmm. Dan, what do you think?
Seriously, Stugotz? Do you see my disappointment? Turn around so that you can see my disappointment.
I don't want to. I can feel it. I don't need to. I mean,
I have had difficulty recently in being able to talk about the ESPN stuff, because every damn time I talk about the ESPN stuff, it becomes I'm the bitter ex-employee, even though I'm just trying to be honest about what I see happening in the media that's changing, and I want the worldwide leader to behave like the worldwide leader. What you have happening in renting to people like Dana White, who didn't suffer any consequences when other than the public shame of slapping his wife in public and having the video out, didn't suffer anything in the way of public reprimand or consequences from the people in charge, is you end up being complicit on this stuff, Stugotz, when you just take the money and all you stand for is the taking of the money. And I do think that people need to see it and notice it. And I understand Mike's objection, because Mike has consistently objected. He wanted me to stop doing anything with Covington a while ago, because Covington is just clearly doing that in order to sell fights.
Dan, I want to welcome, like Jeremy and I have been talking off air here, and I think he can give voice to exactly why I hesitate to playing these clips, because whether you know it or not, you're playing the game and you're doing exactly what they want you to do.
These people want us to platform them, Dan. Like, these people want us to play these clips and then criticize them, because then they can claim, oh, we're getting canceled, and they can just rally their troops even more to be even more invigorated by this, to be even more infuriated by quote unquote cancel culture, when they're really the ones spewing hate.
Hey, it's Mike Ryan. I love football, and I love Miller Lite. Why do I love Miller Lite? Well, dependable flavor, the fact that it's a beer that tastes like beer, the fact that when I'm having a Miller Lite, I don't have to think for 1 second about the beer that I'm drinking. And I know that it's only 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. It's my favorite beer. I believe in the product. You might be sick of hearing me talk about it, but I'll be talking about it till I'm old and gray, because Miller Lite is with me wherever I go, no matter the season, and especially the wintertime. I love drinking Miller Lite during the winters because when it's cold outside, I don't need a koozie for it. It stays a perfect temp. It is the best beer, and it pairs well with playoff football. Miller Lite, great taste, 96 calories. Go to MillerLite.com/Dan to find delivery options near you, or you can pick up some Miller Lite pretty much anywhere that they sell beer. Tastes like Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces.